lesson. Worried, she told him not to joke about such things, especially there, as bringing him there was a gamble for her too. Suddenly, a voice called him an insolent wretch. They turned to see Han Cheol rushing toward them in anger. Furiously, Han Cheol demanded to know if Irun had dared threaten the lady. Han Cheol dashed forward, shouting for Irun to prepare himself. Yuna called Han Cheol her grandfather and tried to stop him, but it was too late. Han Cheol launched a powerful punch at Irun, causing a loud explosion. However, Han Cheol was stunned to see Irun calmly block his punch with his bare hand. Irun asked in an unbothered tone if this was how the blood cult treated their benefactors. Later, they were inside the Ganga group headquarters, seated in front of a table laden with delicious meals. Han Cheol, laughing, admitted that he had been mistaken and told Irun to eat his fill. Irun silently stared at the food, which Han Cheol noticed. He assured Irun not to worry, because the food wasn't poisoned. Irun smiled at the comment and began eating, explaining that poison didn't work on him and that it had simply been a long time since he'd had a proper meal. Han Cheol, cutting his steak, responded that if that was the case, Irun should eat as much as he wanted. As Han Cheol observed him, he recalled the information he'd gathered in a short time. According to reports, Irun was a so-called companion killer named Lee Irun, enslaved by the Volcano Guild and declared dead recently. However, Han Cheol noted that Irun's appearance was entirely different from what was reported. Even more curious was the energy Han Cheol had felt when Irun blocked his attack earlier. It was clearly internal power, not the strength of a typical player. This left Han Cheol wondering about Irun's true identity. While Han Cheol suspected that Irun's internal energy level wasn't higher than his own, he found Irun's relaxed attitude unnerving. Han Cheol finally spoke, acknowledging that Irun had come because Yunha owed him a favor and had promised to grant him a wish. He encouraged Irun to state what he wanted, assuring him that anything within his power would be granted, but only if Irun made one promise beforehand. Irun guessed that Han Cheol wanted him to join the blood sect. Han Cheol confirmed this, adding that Irun seemed to know a lot about their sect and asking how he'd come by that information. Han Cheol then mentioned that he'd never heard of the companion killer, Lee Irun, being a member of their sect. Hearing this, Irun grew angry and demanded to know if Han Cheol had been researching him. Han Cheol explained that he couldn't allow someone into the sect's base without knowing anything about them, a statement that heightened the tension in the room. Yuna felt the strain in the air between them. Han Cheol asked if Irun had heard about the sect while working at the Volcano Guild's monster disposal site. Irun replied, "Close." Han Cheol then inquired if Irun had asked about the Heavenly Sect and the Blood Sect, and, if so, which side he was on. Irun replied that, for now, he supposed they could say the Blood Sect. Han Cheol pressed him on what he meant by "for now," but Irun simply said he'd explain the details later. Han Cheol agreed to officially make Irun a sect member, but was surprised when Irun declared he had no intention of serving under Han Cheol. Instead, Irun suggested that Han Cheol should serve under him. Infuriated, Han Cheol called him arrogant. He released a powerful aura that shook the entire building and demanded if Irun realized what he was saying. Irun, unbothered, calmly replied, "Of course." When Yuna tried to intervene, Irun addressed Han Cheol directly, ordering him to hand over the position of Blood Demon. This enraged Han Cheol further. Slamming his fist on the table, he shattered it into pieces, but Irun remained seated and unfazed. Han Cheol warned him that he had crossed the line. When Unha attempted to calm her grandfather, Han Cheol shouted at her to stay back, leaving her hesitant. He reminded her of the punishment for daring to speak of the Blood Demon's name and told her even she couldn't protect Irun. Realizing the situation was dire, Irun stood up and raised his hand. He knew that realistically, he was one level below Han Cheol. Although he had progressed quickly, his body couldn't yet use martial arts effectively. Han Cheol, noticing this, asked if Irun needed a weapon and offered to provide one. Irun declined, explaining that using a weapon would cause problems. This only frustrated Han Cheol further. He called Irun arrogant, questioning why he wouldn't even take a fighting stance. Irun reiterated calmly that he couldn't use martial arts, which pushed Han Cheol to his limit. Han Cheol's aura intensified, shattering the building's glass as he shouted, accusing Irun of mocking him. Irun, however, maintained his composure, insisting he was serious. Han Cheol declared that since Irun needed no preparation, he should attack. Out of consideration for Yunha, Han Cheol would give him 3 seconds. Irun asked if the blood sect was always this honorable. Han Cheol replied that they were treating him as a guest to be dealt with, not an enemy. Yuna pleaded with her grandfather to reconsider, but Han Cheol ordered her to step aside. Desperate, she turned to Irun and addressed him as an honored guest, urging him to retract his statement. Han Cheol, furious, demanded to know who Ro-Woon was to warrant such loyalty from Yoonha. Even Yoonha herself didn't fully understand why she was defending Ro-Woon. She instinctively felt that he was the one who could save the blood sect from its crisis. Ro-Woon, noticing this, revealed that Yoonha was the priestess, an oracle serving the blood demon. Han Cheol finally launched his attack. As his fist neared Ro-Woon, Yoonha tried to stop him, but it was too late. The resulting explosion shook the floor and could be heard outside. Yoonha shielded herself from the blast, and when she looked up, was shocked to see her grandfather's flames disappearing. Realizing the flames hadn't simply vanished but were being absorbed, she and Han Cheol were stunned. Ro-Woon had absorbed Han Cheol's demon flame completely. Han Cheol, in disbelief, realized that the martial art Ro-Woon had used was unmistakably the blood demon art. Ro-Woon asked if Han Cheol now understood and ordered him to kneel. Overwhelmed, Han Cheol knelt immediately, followed by Yoonha. Both bowed before Ro-Woon and greeted him as their master. Ro-Woon confirmed their submission, proclaiming himself the blood demon, the master of the blood sect. Han Cheol, sweating in fear, wondered how a player could know the blood demon arts. Ro-Woon then asked if Han Cheol could hand over the position of blood demon now, but Han Cheol remained silent. This prompted Ro-Woon to question why he wasn't answering. Stuttering, Han Cheol explained that it was because the current blood demon already ruled the blood sect, which surprised Ro-Woon. Ro-Woon asked if Han Cheol meant there was already a blood demon, to which Han Cheol replied affirmatively. Ro-Woon then questioned why Han Cheol had kneeled to him if there was already a blood demon. Han Cheol explained that the current blood demon's blood demon art was a less complete form than Ro-Woon's. Respectfully, Han Cheol added that while he couldn't fathom how Ro-Woon had mastered the blood demon art, it was considered the proof of the blood demon's identity and the symbol of the blood sect. Ro-Woon laughed, mocking Han Cheol's statement. He asked if Han Cheol truly believed the blood demon art was the proof of the blood demon's identity, calling it ridiculous. He then remarked that he now understood why the blood sect was in its current state. Han Cheol, confused, looked at him as Ro-Woon declared that the current blood demon was nothing more than a half-baked imposter. Harnessing the black power around him, Ro-Woon transformed it into sharp blades aimed directly at Han Cheol's head. He then asked Han Cheol about his position in the blood sect. Han Cheol replied that he was the left protector. Aware that someone of Han Cheol's rank would know such details, Ro-Woon withdrew his demon power and began explaining. He told Han Cheol that the true symbol of the blood demon was not the blood demon art. Absorbing all the demon power in the room, he revealed that it was the blood demon divine art. Han Cheol was shocked, realizing that Ro-Woon was the true blood demon. It no longer mattered how this had happened. There was no more concrete proof than the energy of the divine art. Both Han Cheol and Yoonha bowed their heads even lower, shouting reverently, "Blood demon's grace, endless dark blessing." Ro-Woon, unimpressed, asked them what that was. Han Cheol explained that it was a traditional greeting dedicated to the blood demon, passed down in the blood sect. Ro-Woon scoffed, calling it cheesy, and ordered them to stop saying it. When Han Cheol hesitated, Ro-Woon firmly repeated the order, leaving no room for argument. Ro-Woon sat back down and asked Han Cheol to tell him about the current state of the blood sect, specifically what he needed to know to deal with the half-baked demon. Han Cheol reported that the sect was currently governed by 6 elders, as well as himself as the left protector and the right protector. However, he warned that the elders would not easily accept the emergence of a new blood demon, as the current one had ruled for over 10 years. Ro-Woon asked what would happen if he simply killed all those who opposed him. Han Cheol responded that each elder had a specific role in managing the sect, such as investigating external affairs or expanding influence. So it was better to keep them alive, as some might prove useful. Han Cheol then offered to personally meet the elders to gauge their intentions, should Ro-Woon command it. Ro-Woon agreed and ordered him to proceed, which Han Cheol acknowledged before leaving the room. After Han Cheol departed, Yoonha remained behind. She bowed her head and shouted, "Blood demon's grace, endless dark blessing." This made Ro-Woon shout in frustration, reminding her he had told them to stop saying that. The next morning in Namyangju, at Kang Han Cheol's villa, guards patrolled the premises diligently. Inside, Yoonha exhaled deeply to calm her nerves as she approached Ro-Woon's room. Knocking on the door, she heard his voice permitting her to enter. She stepped inside, kneeling in her elegant dress to greet him. Ro-Woon asked her what she was doing. Yoonha explained that it was her morning greeting to the blood demon. He raised an eyebrow and asked if she had dressed up just for this. She replied that she had. Ro-Woon then ordered her not to do it again, questioning why they were making such a fuss first thing in the morning. Yuna explained that as the priestess serving the blood demon, it was her duty. Ro-Woon cut her off, stating that if he ordered her not to do it, she shouldn't. He then told her to go back to sleep. Surprised, she explained that the priestess must always wake earlier and sleep later than the blood demon. Ro-Woon sighed and told her bluntly that he couldn't sleep. Shocked, Yuna exclaimed that such a thing was unbecoming. He replied seriously, insisting he wasn't joking. He literally couldn't sleep. He repeated that she should skip the formalities, ensure she got enough rest, and stop giving morning greetings. Still, Yunha persistently told him that she, too, would follow the blood demon in sleepless training. Ro-Woon sighed and asked her why she wouldn't listen, reminding her that, as the blood demon, he commanded her to stop the morning greetings, weird formalities, and instead act as casually as they had at the gate. This shocked her even more. Stuttering, she replied, "Yes," prompting him to ask why she was glitching out. He quickly realized it must be overwhelming for her to accept that a player was now the blood demon. Yuna immediately denied being overwhelmed, but Ro-Woon dismissed her response and told her the historical drama speech style was also forbidden. She replied that she understood, and he asked if saying "okay" or "I understand" was truly that difficult for her. Hesitant at first, she eventually managed to say, "Okay." He praised her for trying, and then asked if there had been any word from Han Cheol. She replied that she hadn't heard anything yet. Ro-Woon stood up and remarked that, regardless of what happened, his role was already decided. Yuna asked what that role was, and he replied that he would take down the half-baked demon. He then asked if he was right in assuming she understood. It was a world where the strong reigned supreme. If he proved to everyone that he was stronger than the half-baked blood demon, everything would fall into place. For that, he needed to train. He asked if there was a training hall in the villa and ordered her to lead the way. 100 years ago, Ro-Woon had asked his master, Mu Wang, when he would teach him martial arts techniques. Mu Wang had replied that it was a good question and explained that the techniques Ro-Woon would learn had been adjusted so that the three of them, his companions and him, could fully utilize their power. In other words, their individual learnings had been made to mesh seamlessly, like gears in a machine. Using abilities prematurely, before they were fully gained, or failing to completely acquire specific strengths, would hinder the use of subsequent powers. Just like forcing an incomplete gear to rotate would lead to a malfunction. Mu Wang had told him that before completing the Blood Demon Divine Art, he could not use any other weapons or arts. The Sword God had added that experiencing this limitation personally would help Ro-Woon understand better. They ordered him to try swinging a sword. Ro-Woon had taken the sword and swung it clumsily, only to accidentally slash himself, screaming in pain. Back in the present, Ro-Woon was in the villa's training room, controlling his aura and power. He thought to himself that he never wanted to experience the pain of slashing himself again. He would rather endure a full body transformation 10 times over. Still, thanks to the dragon's blood flowing through him, he had reached the final stage of the black blood. However, it was incomplete, as the blood had not yet been fully absorbed. Nevertheless, the dragon's blood coursed through his entire body. He drew some blood out of his body, knowing that he needed to discard all unnecessary vitality so that only pure strength would remain. A powerful black blood and dark energy flowed out of him, radiating intense strength. A week later, Yuna knelt in front of the training room door, thinking to herself that it had been an entire week. She wondered what in the world Ro-Woon was doing. In her opinion, it shouldn't have been possible for Ro-Woon to train in the blood demon art in an empty training hall like this. Suddenly the door creaked open, and she gasped in shock. Ro-Woon emerged, his body now perfectly strong and radiating immense power. Ro-Woon looked down at his hands, a satisfied expression on his face. He had finally entered the final stage of the Blood Demon Divine Art. A moment later, Ro-Woon was mixing his bibimbap and eating it while Yunha sat beside him, staring at him intently. Noticing her gaze, he asked if she wanted some, but she remained silent, lost in thought. She marveled at how he had progressed so much in just a week. It was hard to believe, knowing that without pure blood and a special ritual, mastering the blood demon art was supposed to be impossible. She wondered how he had achieved this in an empty training hall. She snapped out of her thoughts when he asked if she was going to eat or not. Startled, she immediately bowed and stuttered that she would prepare the food herself next time. He told her there was no need, as he had simply thrown everything together and mixed it, reiterating that he was asking if she wanted to eat. Turning to his side, he addressed the invisible men around them, telling them he had no intention of being guarded by those weaker than him. He ordered them to drop their stealth and join him to eat. Yuna was shocked. She realized that he had noticed the Shadow Blood Squad, an elite group of guards painstakingly trained by the elders. Their stealth skills were said to rival the famed Ghostly Melody assassins of Yoon. She couldn't fathom how he had detected them so casually. Watching him call out the men and order them to hurry up and eat, she wondered at his extraordinary perception. Later, Irun returned to the training room to continue refining the blood demon divine art. He noted that true blood felt powerful, and with the black dragon's blood almost fully absorbed, he knew he needed to refine the black blood into true blood. This would perfect the purity of the true blood circulating through his blood core. After finishing his session, he left the training room, reflecting that the only thing he lacked now was time. To shorten that, he needed to seize control of the blood sect. Yuna greeted him, announcing that the meal was ready. He glanced at the dish and saw that the bibimbap was unusually orange. He commented that he thought he had told her he would handle his meals himself. She replied that she couldn't let him personally prepare food while she was there. He asked if she had added too much chili, which shocked her. She thought it made the dish taste better. Suddenly, she knelt down and shouted that she had committed a grave sin and would pay with her life. Exasperated, he shouted back, reminding her to stop doing that. Suddenly, Irun felt something unusual. He immediately looked outside the window, silent and alert. Yuna noticed his reaction and asked what was wrong. He simply replied, "They have guests." Outside the villa, the guards confronted the guest, shouting that they could not enter. The elder among them demanded to know what they meant by that. The third elder, a cold-blooded Taoist named Han Dobek, asked if the guards didn't know who he was. One of the guards replied that they recognized him. Dobek, annoyed, asked if they still refused to step aside despite knowing who he was. Releasing a strong, icy aura, he demanded an explanation. The guard responded that Left Protector Han Cheol had ordered that no one could pass without permission. Dobek swung his sword forward, releasing a sharp wave of cold ice, and stated that he knew it wasn't their fault. Out of mercy, he offered them a final warning. Pointing his sword at the guards, he ordered them to step aside, declaring he would overlook their offense if they obeyed. A cold-blooded tiger spirit loomed behind Dobek, adding to his intimidation. The guards hesitated but ultimately drew their swords, apologizing as they stood their ground. Dobek dashed forward with his sword, praising the guards for their proper attitude as followers of the blood sect. The lead guard was stunned, realizing Dobek had appeared in front of him in an instant. Dobek swung his sword, aiming for the guard, but stopped when Yunha shouted his name. He looked up to see her standing between him and the guards. Dobek loudly asked Yunha what she was doing, calling her behavior reckless. She shouted back, demanding to know what he was doing there, reminding him that Han Cheol had not granted permission for his visit. Dobek, remaining calm, called her by name and asked if she truly didn't understand Han Cheol's plot. He then shouted that Han Cheol was committing treason by dividing the blood sect they had barely managed to unify. Dobek asked how he could stand by and allow this. Yuna firmly explained that the blood demon was someone she, as the priestess, had chosen, and asked if Dobek still doubted him. Dobek retorted by asking how a former player could master the blood demon art, leaving her momentarily speechless. Dobek continued, pointing out that throughout history, there had been imposters claiming to be the blood demon. He warned that Iraun could be a spy from the Celestial clan. Even if Iraun was the real blood demon, Dobek stated, the law did not permit two suns under the same sky. At this rate, both she and Han Cheol would be charged with treason. To prevent further escalation, Dobek declared he would handle the matter himself. Pointing his sword at her, he told her to step aside, adding that he didn't want to lose her or Han Cheol. Yuna stood her ground, insisting that Han Cheol would never forgive such an act. Dobek responded that he had already made his decision, and, even if it put him at odds with Han Cheol or cost him his life, it was the least he could do for his friend. Dobek apologized to Yunha for his rudeness, but insisted she move aside. Before he could swing his sword, Han Cheol suddenly appeared, launching a furious punch that caused a strong explosion. Dobek, fortunately, managed to block it with his sword. Han Cheol addressed Dobek respectfully as Third Elder, before angrily switching to his real name. He demanded to know what Dobek thought he was doing. The elders with fire and ice magic powers stood face to face. Han Cheol, expecting this confrontation, wondered why things had escalated so quickly as he stared at his old friend. Dobek broke the silence, telling Han Cheol that the Volcano Guild was on the move, which shocked both Han Cheol and Yunha. Dobek added that the guild had found their trail. He then asked Han Cheol what he thought would happen if the existence of a new blood demon was announced now. Dobek warned that Han Cheol would be the first to be discarded, thrown to the enemies as bait. Han Cheol argued that the Volcano Guild had no reason not to oppose the Blood Demon. Dobek pressed him further, asking if he had considered the possibility that Iraun might be a spy. This enraged Han Cheol, who shouted that the suggestion was absurd. Releasing more of his power, Han Cheol forced Dobek to protect himself by blocking the fiery aura with his ice magic. Han Cheol angrily asked if Dobek was accusing him of failing to recognize true blood demon arts. Dobek, remaining composed, responded that Han Cheol knew as well as he did that the Heavenly Demon cult had spent ages researching the blood demon arts. Though unlikely, he argued, the cult could have achieved such mastery. Han Cheol shouted it was enough, but Dobek defiantly continued, declaring that even if Iraun was the true blood demon, it changed nothing. Han Cheol was stunned. Dobek elaborated that causing division within the blood sect at such a time was suicidal. Killing Iraun, he argued, was the right choice. Dobek's words further fueled Han Cheol's anger. He warned Dobek that he had crossed a line he should never have crossed. Dobek gripped his sword tightly, positioning himself, and asked Han Cheol how he could stand idly by while throwing himself into the flames. The two prepared to clash. Han Cheol vowed to sever Dobek's limbs and begged the blood demon for forgiveness, but Dobek retorted that Han Cheol might as well kill him outright. Han Cheol leapt forward, launching a flaming fist at Dobek, who swung his sword in retaliation. Before their attacks could connect, Iraun calmly ordered them to stop. Both elders froze in shock. Dobek suddenly felt an overwhelming presence behind him. Han Cheol immediately recognized the blood demon and bowed deeply, greeting Iraun with utmost respect. Sweating, Dobek turned to see Iraun and realized he hadn't even sensed his presence. Han Cheol shouted at Dobek to bow before the blood demon, but Dobek hesitated. He understood that if Iraun had aimed for his neck, he would already be dead. Looking closely, Dobek noticed Iraun's crimson hair and scarlet eyes, unmistakable proof of blood demon arts. At last, Dobek acknowledged Iraun as the blood demon, sheathed his sword, and greeted him with deference. Iraun told Han Cheol to stop prostrating, saying he didn't like it. He asked Han Cheol why he had been cutting off the limbs of his sect members when the blood sect was already crumbling. Han Cheol stuttered an apology. Turning to Dobek, who had stepped back in fear, Iraun asked if Dobek had come to kill him, spare him if he met his standards, or kill him if he didn't. Dobek hesitated, seeing Iraun's blood-colored eyes, but managed to reply that he had. He explained that the blood sect already served a blood demon, and the emergence of a new one would destabilize the sect, which was only now beginning to stabilize. Smiling, Iraun praised Dobek for his courage, saying it was fitting for a senior elder. He asked Dobek for his verdict. Did Iraun meet his standards? Dobek, still trembling, said proof was needed. Iraun thought for a moment, then extracted a drop of his own blood, asking if it sufficed. Dobek stared at the floating drop, horrified by the overwhelming blood demon energy it radiated. Realizing the truth, Dobek immediately knelt, addressing Iraun as the true blood demon. Dobek, overcome with guilt, grabbed his sword and declared that he would sever his right arm to atone for doubting the blood demon. As he raised the sword, Iraun casually shot a blood bullet, knocking it away. Dobek's sword pierced the ground behind him as Iraun reminded him that he had told them not to cut off their limbs, and that they never listened. A moment later, Yunha, Dobek, and Han Cheol were kneeling. Iraun sat on the sofa, visibly frustrated, and told them to sit there instead. Han Cheol replied that they couldn't possibly sit on the same level as the blood demon. Iraun, exasperated, let them do as they pleased. Han Cheol studied Iraun closely, recalling the power he had felt earlier. In just over a week, Iraun had grown even stronger. Han Cheol asked if it was possible that Iraun had reached the transcendent stage. Iraun replied that he hadn't yet. Han Cheol optimistically noted that at this rate, Iraun would soon reach transcendence. Dobek, however, pointed out that the current blood demon had already reached the transcendent stage, as had the first elder, who was closest to him. Among the remaining elders, Dobek added, none would switch sides to support a new blood demon. Yuna interjected, saying there was only one solution. Since Iraun was progressing faster than expected, he needed to quickly reach transcendence and personally defeat the current blood demon. If he did so, even the elders would have no choice but to accept him as the new blood demon. Iraun asked how long it would take to reach transcendence, admitting he wasn't even sure he could achieve it. Yunha was taken aback. Iraun then asked if they thought the sect would simply sit back and wait. Turning to Dobek, he pointed out that by now, his existence must already be known to the blood sect, which explained why they were hurrying to act against him. Han Cheol slammed his head to the floor in a hard bow, shouting his apologies. He explained that he had thought the fourth elder might be open to switching sides, given his tendencies, but it turned out the fourth elder had already aligned himself with the current blood demon. Iraun told Han Cheol to stop groveling over trivial matters and declared that since things had come to this, they should act. He stood and told them it was time to take down the current blood demon. Passing through the gate transported them to an unknown land filled with monsters, while passing through a dungeon led to another world. The world first learned of the dungeon's existence when gate breaks occurred everywhere, threatening to destroy civilization. Humanity was saved by humans from another world, though superhuman players later began appearing among Earth's inhabitants. However, these players couldn't compare to the residents of invaded worlds who had fought mysterious beings for countless ages. In the end, the world endured their intervention. Yoon controlled the Asian region, while Einhart dominated the Western territories. These forces divided the world, exercising their influence. Yoon, which came to dominate most of South Korea's land, ensured that the blood sect concealed its entrance thoroughly from their watchful eyes. Iraun asked if the entrance was supposed to blend into existing structures, pointing to a door by the banks of the Bukhan River, and questioned if it had always been there. Yuna replied that she thought the Blood Demon's fortress door shouldn't look too ordinary, so she had added some flair. Iraun asked if she was even trying to hide it. Yuna confidently explained that reaching that location meant bypassing all of the blood sect's traps and magical barriers, so there was no longer any need to hide it. She proudly declared that among Yoon's inhabitants, Iraun was the only one who had made it that far. Yuna then asked if this was his first time in Yoon's world. To her surprise, Iraun replied that he had been there once before. Impressed, she told him she had expected nothing less, as he had been exceptional even as a player. Iraun cryptically replied that perhaps if he'd lived like everyone else, things wouldn't have turned out this way, leaving her confused. He told her not to mind it and ordered her to open the door, which she immediately did. Yuna placed her hand on the gate, releasing her demon power to unlock it. The group watched in silence as she worked. Eventually, she succeeded in opening the gate and welcomed him into the Blood Demon's fortress. Iraun stepped through and was shocked by the sight of the super poor, destroyed place. Disappointed, he remarked that although he'd heard things were in decline, he hadn't expected it to be this bad. Dobek lowered his head in embarrassment and Han Cheol apologized for the state of the fortress. Iraun turned to Yoonha and asked what could possibly have caused such a state. Yoonha explained that Yoon's world was a fragment of a destroyed world. To sustain it, nourishment was required. Resources like magic stones, from monsters, or gate cores. She began to elaborate on how the fortress was massive, even compared to other parts of Yoon's world. But Iraun cut her off, pointing out that the sheer scale meant it consumed far more nourishment. He added that this explained the sect's desperation to recruit followers, which she sadly confirmed. Iraun asked why the Kangha Guild, being a large corporation, hadn't focused more on collecting magic stones. Han Cheol explained that drawing too much attention could endanger the sect. If a guild like Volcano discovered the Blood Demon's fortress entrance in its current state, it would be impossible to guarantee the future. Yuna added that while that was one reason, the elders had also prohibited hunting gate monsters. Iraun, incredulous, asked what kind of nonsense that was. Yuna explained that the elders claimed it violated the laws for the Great Blood Demon's followers to hunt mere beasts. Frustrated, Iraun slapped his forehead, declaring that a thorough cleanup was in order. Turning to Dobek, he asked if Dobek agreed. Dobek immediately replied no, explaining that he had never supported such ideas and had even established a guild in the outer world to continue their activities. Suddenly, a man appeared and announced their arrival. The man introduced himself as the Blood Sword Captain, Jong Jisoo, and explained that his unit had been ordered to escort them to the Blood Demon's fortress. Yoonha, suspicious, drew her sword and aimed it at the blood swords, asking if they intended to take them by force. Jisoo calmly replied that they were simply following the Blood Demon's orders. Han Cheol released his flames and demanded to know if they thought he would go willingly. Sighing, Jisoo unsheathed his sword, joined by his unit. Yuna, Han Cheol, and Dobek stood ready to fight, but Iraun suddenly told them to stand down, surprising everyone. Yuna turned to him in shock, but he calmly explained that since the blood swords had come all that way to escort him, he might as well go. He walked forward and told the group not to be scared and to follow, leaving them confused but compliant. A moment later, they arrived at the Blood Demon's fortress, the Blood Throne Hall. Han Cheol's gaze fell on the fake lord, who was ending his seclusion training. Noticing that the fake lord was far stronger than before, Han Cheol grew wary. A man beside the fake lord accused Han Cheol of conspiring against the blood demon, asking how he, someone who served closest to the blood demon, could betray him. Han Cheol calmly replied that he merely sought the true blood demon, enraging the man and the other elders. The elders shouted that such claims were blasphemous, demanding to know what nonsense Han Cheol was spouting. The fake lord, unfazed, said it was fascinating and asked if there truly was another blood demon besides himself. The elders exchanged worried glances, but the fake lord declared that the timing was perfect. He admitted to hitting a wall in advancing his blood demon art, and revealed his intention to absorb Irun's power to ascend as the blood demon god. Han Cheol and Dobek were stunned, their shock mingled with fear.